This work aims to develop a comprehensive yet coherent perspective on the hard problem of consciousness and its place within the natural order. By drawing upon insights from physics, biology, psychology, philosophy, and related fields, the goal is to advance our understanding of experience and agency as intrinsically arising phenomena within an intrinsically participatory cosmos. While much remains uncertain, any framework adequate to life's profound mysteries must embrace humility before nature's endless creativity and capacity to surprise. It is hoped the discussions contained herein may stimulate further contemplation and inquiry toward enlightened wisdom. Introduction. Consciousness represents one of the greatest philosophical puzzles confronting humanity. While we each experience the miracle of inner subjective awareness directly, explaining how and why this private domain arises from physical processes remains elusive. In this text, I aim to thoughtfully examine consciousness from multiple intersecting perspectives, from philosophy and physics to neuroscience and the sociocultural dynamics shaping our existence, in search of coherent insights into this perplexing yet profoundly consequential mystery. Any interdisciplinary inquiry risks superficial coverage of complex subjects. Nevertheless, certain viewpoints seem particularly fruitful for integrated progress. Panpsychism's attribution of primal experience even to fundamental particles offers a promising starting point, though requires synthesizing with physicalism. Category theory's abstract conceptualization of relationships aligns well with quantum graphs modeling microscale processes, while dynamical systems theory models nonlinear interactions across scales. General relativity's relativization of space-time to contextual observers parallels phenomenology's contextualization of reality. Both suggest experience varies with perspective. Memetics conceptualizes cultural units of transmission analogous to genes, useful for modeling sociocultural evolution. While each perspective offers limited views, their synergistic combination promises more comprehensive insight. Through sustained analysis of empirical evidence combined with theoretical rigor, this work aims to forge convergent understanding across disciplines. Contemplating consciousness's interdependence with brain, body, and broader environments cultivates ecological awareness of human interrelation with cosmos. By disentangling conceptual knots regarding free will, causality, and uncertainty, we can progress toward wiser and more compassionate relations. Overall, coherent insights into experience's fundamental nature and contextually embedded flow might inspire inhabitants of this obscure yet astonishing universe with renewed reverence, responsibility, and humility. To maintain academic respectability, however, each claim requires conscientious substantiation. Parts IV, therefore, carefully examine theoretical considerations around panpsychism, physicalism, category theory, and dynamical systems through the lenses of respected philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians. Parts VVA then reference empirical studies and mathematical models regarding temporality, agency, and the quantum nature of reality as described by physicists. Parts IXXX apply such insights through consideration of cognitive neuroscience and cultural evolution research, respectively. Parts G emphasized humility before nature's unmasterable mysteries within necessarily limited frameworks. While final answers remain elusive, diligent and even-handed inquiry across disciplines could cultivate increased understanding of our fascinating yet profoundly mysterious nature. My role remains merely to ask questions, not dictate conclusions. By providing a holistic yet empirically grounded exploration, this work humbly aims to advance open-minded contemplation of life, consciousness, and humanity's place in the grand adventure of understanding ourselves and our magnificent universe. Part I, Foundations, Chapter 1, The Hard Problem of Consciousness. In his widely cited article Consciousness Explained, Daniel Dennett rejected the assertion that consciousness posed a special hard problem distinct from questions regarding the physical brain. However, philosopher popularized the notion of a hard problem to describe the epistemological challenge of explaining experience itself, why and how consciousness arises from physical processes. A wealth of evidence now supports the distinction between subjective qualitative experience, qualia, and objective third-person descriptions of brain function. Neurological patients can remain cogent yet lose colors, sounds, or control of limbs with defined lesions. While technologies like electroencephalogram, fMRI, and TMS have greatly advanced our understanding of neural correlates for perception, emotion, and cognition, they reveal nothing about experience per se. As long as scientific inquiry remains restricted to the physical domain, the origins of first-person experience will remain physically inexplicable. The explanatory gap between neurons firing and sensations of red thus drives what elucidates as the hard problem of consciousness. This conceptual bottleneck forms the starting point for alternative approaches that attribute primal experience more fundamentally. Chapter 2. Panpsychism as a solution. One promising framework that aims to close the explanatory gap is panpsychism, the view that some form of experience or sentience is a fundamental attribute of all physical things. Panpsychism posits that just as mass energy are innate physical properties, a more primal form of proto-experience, present even at the scale of elementary particles, underlies all material existence. While often considered initially exotic, panpsychism finds increasing support from semantics that link experience to aliveness in general and theories of quantum consciousness, attributing rudimentary awareness to the micro-realm. Process philosophy conceptualizes experience as an essential property of dynamic processes themselves. The combinationism variant posits that complex phenomenal properties emerge via coherent interactions between simpler ones. A panpsychist perspective could help address philosophical issues like combining experience and causality, defining death and consciousness in non-biological systems like computers, AI, and accounting for variation in subjective qualities among species. While problematic scientifically, panpsychism at minimum motivates novel conceptual approaches to bridging the explanatory gap. Chapter 3. Combining panpsychism and physicalism. Several attempts have been proposed for combining a panpsychist metaphysics with physicalism, the mainstream empirical assertion that all phenomena will ultimately receive complete physical explanations. Property dualism posits that while experience and physical properties are distinct, they do not operate independently, interacting in lawful yet currently opaque ways. Claims that proto-experiences fundamentally arise from quantum microprocesses relate panpsychism to contemporary physics. Neutral monism holds that a more fundamental substance or process underlies and gives rise to both the mental and physical in an undiscovered yet lawfully determined way. Combining this perspective with mainstream physics could present a unified cosmology. Some favor joining panpsychism with Russellian monism, that all entities are differing organizational patterns within one neutral underlying stuff. Experience could emerge via organized quantum entanglements without violating physicalism. While the above constitutes active speculation rather than scientific facts, combining panpsychism with physicalism remains a promising strategy deserving rigorous consideration. Careful conceptual work may clarify how experience and physical matter interrelate lawfully without contradiction. Chapter 4. Mathematics as the interface. Category theory provides an abstract mathematical framework well-suited for conceptualizing relationships between distinct domains like the mental and physical. Within this category theoretic lens, panpsychism and physicalism each represent valid, yet partial perspectives that fail alone but could jointly provide a more holistic picture. Considering experience as natural transformations between categories aligns with process philosophy's view of experience as internally relating aspects. Categories also subsume quantum graphs modeling microentanglements in a way compatible with panpsychism. This may suggest how proto-experience and physicality fundamentally interdepend yet remain distinguishable. Mathematical logic systems like Topos theory unify classical with intuitionistic perspectives through internal languages respecting both Boolean Hating algebras. By seeing reality through multiple formal lenses, dependency of conclusions on perspectives becomes clear. This relativizes claims while providing a framework integrating panpsychist and physicalist viewpoints cooperatively rather than competitively. Overall, carefully developed abstract conceptual frameworks in mathematics and logic show promise for fruitfully blending separate viewpoints that alone fail to enlighten the deep mysteries of mind and matter. Their rigorous deductive structure and lack of empirical preconceptions position them well for such revolutions in thinking. Chapter 5. Category Theory and Quantum Graphs. Recent work by physicists and philosophers has applied category theory and related formal methods to conceptual problems in quantum theory and foundations of physics. Category theoretic techniques, which formalize structures and relationships in a unified framework, have been used to build new models of quantum theory and understand relationships between quantum and classical perspectives. Quantum causal graphs provides a category theoretic approach to representing and reasoning about quantum processes. By representing physical systems as objects in a category and interactions as morphisms, quantum causal graphs can model processes at the microphysical scale in terms of coherence and complexity measures. Simultaneously, category theory's abstraction allows relating these structures to formalized descriptions of consciousness. Topos theory builds upon category theory and intuitionistic logic to study quantum contexts and provide sheaf theoretic reconstructions of quantum theory. Through internal languages, topos theory unifies classical and quantum perspectives. This provides a formal setting to model consciousness's dependency on context and relationally between qualia and physical dynamics, as formalized using sheaves and stacks. Overall, category theory and related mathematical structures show promise as rigorous yet flexible frameworks for conceptual problems, bridging the mind-matter relationship. By formalizing relationships across traditionally separate domains, they cultivate a more holistic and systematically integrated understanding of existence. Part 2. Modeling Consciousness. Chapter 1. Consciousness complexes as informational nodes. Any theoretical framework for consciousness must account for its highly integrated yet modular nature. Neuroscience demonstrates consciousness arising from interactions within large-scale distributed networks rather than localized regions. Informational integration between neuronal assemblies creates what Giulio Tononi terms a consciousness complex, a unified informational datum, conscious percept or thought. Consciousness complexes exhibit several key properties: intrinsic existence as real individual patterns of information, differentiation from other informational contents, interdependency of internal components yet autonomy as integrated wholes, and behavioral effectiveness as units of experience and intentionality. These characteristics parallel those of recursive self-maintaining dynamical systems, which arise through parts simultaneously determining and being determined by the whole. Conceptualizing consciousness complexes as informational nodes or gestalts within recursive dynamical systems provides a framework for modeling experience as integrated, holistic yet modular patterns. Its properties align with phenomenology of unified multisensory perceptions, thoughts, and memories arising through distributed yet integrated processes. Correlates in brain networks exhibit similar properties as complex informational structures. Chapter 2. Boundaries, Horizons, and Interiority. Any phenomenon, conscious or otherwise, necessarily involves demarcating some elements as internal to a bounded entity differentiated from external surroundings. Conscious contents further exhibit interiority, a private first-person quality, not merely of boundedness, but conscious awareness of internal representations and dynamics from within. General systems theory recognizes both boundary maintenance and the observer's perspective as intrinsic to any entity's existence. Living systems theory models boundaries as semi-permeable filters regulating energy and matter exchange between organism and environment. Consciousness likely creates interiority by recursively folding sensory experience back on itself through higher-order thought. Horizons demarcate visibility within boundaries, with consciousness extending it by reflecting internally on itself and representing absence, memory, and potential. More broadly, cosmologically, horizons define causal structure of spacetime and what regions can mutually interact. Interiority and horizons thus arise naturally from any entity's bounded, yet open relations and its perspective within complexes of causes. This has parallels in consciousness, placing subjective experience within a universal process of perspective and relation. Chapter 3. Dynamical systems and recursion. Mental and biological phenomena arise from innumerable dynamic interactions too numerous and complex to characterize deterministically. Dynamical systems theory provides a powerful framework for conceptualizing the situated emergence of order from chaos through self-organization on multiple interconnected levels. Consciousness itself appropriately models as a complex, non-linear recursive dynamical system. Recursive processes, where outcomes become inputs to constituent subprocesses, enable self-sustaining dynamics within boundaries. Consciousness recursively organizes sensations, thoughts, and behaviors, creating representational models through internal dynamical activity. Higher-order meta-representations generate interior awareness and sense of self through reflexively representing representational states. Brains demonstrate anatomical and functional recursiveness over multiple interconnected scales. Neuronal processes recursively correlate intrinsically generated signals with external input to integrate information in consciousness complexes. Meanwhile, social and cultural influences recursively shape mental activity. Overall, recursive dynamical systems theory provides a coherent framework embracing scale-free emergence within nested interactive levels of consciousness as a property of existence generally. Chapter 4. Holographic principle and diffraction. Groundbreaking applications of mathematics to gravitation have revealed unexpected insights into nature's deep unity. The holographic principle asserts that a quantum gravity theory, a volume of space, can be described by a non-gravitational theory that lives on its boundary. This suggests spacetime and its contents are encoded informationally on horizons like event or apparent horizons surrounding gravitating masses. Holographic theory finds support from black hole thermodynamics. Biological information storage principles resemble holograms, taking advantage of interference and redundancy. If consciousness also involves holographic encoding of information distributed throughout an entity, yet accessible to localized parts, such as neuronal assemblies within brains, this could account for observed binding and integration of distributed representations. Meanwhile, the complex mathematics of diffraction, interference, and relativity unify descriptions of waves, particles, and information. Diffractive approaches model perception, visual qualia, memory, and more recently general consciousness. Holographic and diffractive models plus mathematics of categorization hold promise in conceptualizing consciousness naturalistically, yet coherently, while embracing nature's unity. Chapter 5. Entanglement, decoherence, and measurement. Background assumptions framing consciousness determine interpretations of quantum theory's inherently strange, yet informationally rich dynamics. Entanglement unites spatially separated entities into coherent quantum states, implying influences transcending locality. Weak quantum measurement produces small interacting perturbations within a system, yet maintains entanglement. Conscious observation involves continuous quantum measurement, encouraging preferred observable conscious degrees of freedom. Meanwhile, environmental decoherence induces collapse from entangled superpositions into definite classical states. Depending on interpretive lens, consciousness might cause or guide collapse, experience collapse, or exist within multiple frameworks. Certain interpretations unite elegantly with panpsychic accounts. Many worlds asserts parallel universes branch on quantum interactions. Similarly, panpsychism suggests multiple proto-experiential aspects coexist within a quantum unified reality. If gravitationally encoded on horizons, Consciousness could involve entanglement between network structures across scales, a superposition of structural potentialities resolved into preferred definite dominant patterns. Overall, a rigorously quantum-informed framework holds promise. Part the third, relating M and D and Matter Chapter 1, Neuroplasticity and Neural Correlates Experimental and Theoretical Progress, has greatly illuminated relationships between brain dynamics, cognition, and experience. Techniques like electroencephalogram, MEG, fMRI, and TMS increasingly identify neural correlates of perceptual, emotional, and conceptual processes. Meanwhile, neuroplasticity demonstrates enduring mental activity physically modifies neuronal structure and connections. Neuroplasticity provides a mechanism whereby mental processes could bottom-up influence brains over developmental and shorter timescales. Brain plasticity also suggests experience shapes neural circuits in an iterative process. Activity-dependent plasticity occurs across multiple integrated levels from synapses to systems. These experiences dynamically mold brain networks, intrinsically representing structures of external and internal worlds. Reciprocally, large-scale neuronal dynamics shape moment-to-moment experience in a continuous iterative cognitive cycle. Feed-forward and feedback signaling integratively process sensory stimuli. Oscillatory synchronization distributes information across specialized regions, dynamically binding features into unified percepts. Overall, it appears mind and matter reciprocally influence each other in adaptive neural self-organization across interconnected levels. Chapter 2. Synchronization and resonance. Reciprocal relationships between consciousness and brain dynamics become clearer by considering coherent oscillations as vehicles for large-scale coordination and distributed information sharing. Electrophysiological studies demonstrate macroscopic synchronization of oscillatory neuronal assemblies underlies perceptual, memory, and higher cognitive processes. Neural oscillations could temporally coordinate firing patterns into preferred phase relationships, representing multimodal feature conjunctions. Precisely timed resonant interactions enable long-distance integration and communication between widespread specialized brain regions underlying unified moment-to-moment experience. Information transmitted across synchronized assemblies helps solve binding problem of combining distributed sensory attributes. Reciprocally, mental focus and intention may entrain and guide brain resonances toward representations enacting goals. Top-down signals could selectively modulate oscillations to facilitate processing of relevant stimuli. Action and perception also become reciprocally enmeshed through sensoromotor resonance between brain, body, and environment. Coordinated oscillations demonstrate a viable neurophysiological mechanism enabling mental and material to mutually adapt. Chapter 3. Physicalism vs. Panexperientialism. Physicalism asserts all phenomena, including consciousness, will receive complete explanations within a confirmed physical theory of nature. However, the ontology of panpsychism suggesting experience constitutes a fundamental feature of existence raises questions for physicalism's scope. Certain unresolved issues motivate integrative perspectives accounting for both mind and matter. Panexperientialist physicalism holds experience exists universally as a fundamental, yet non-physical, categorical intrinsic property of all organizational dynamisms, from elementary particles on up, without violating physical laws. Complementing versions like property dualism stipulate experience relates lawfully to physical dynamics without reducing to them. Russellian monism asserts particles, people, and everything are varying structural patterns within an underlying neutral stuff. By organizing in certain ways, this base stuff takes on physical and experiential properties without separating into distinct substances. This reconciles panpsychism with an austere physicalism regarding ultimate constituents of reality, while still speculative, incorporating notions that experiences universally accompany. Organizational activity, while correlating lawfully with physical laws, promises a metaphysics more comprehensive than physicalism or panpsychism alone regarding consciousness and its relations to the material world. ongoing work combines perspectives empirically, methodologically, and conceptually. Chapter 4. Co-emergence and co-evolution. A unifying theme across scales relates to emergence, how novel cooperative properties arise through part interactions without being reducible to single components. Natural phenomena appear primitively holistic, yet encompass levels exhibiting relational autonomy. Both panpsychism and panexperientialism posit conscious experience as one such emergent at multiple interwoven scales. Mind and matter co-emerge through Darwinian mechanisms across eons, reciprocally shaping each other. Conscious reflection co-evolved with linguistic capacity and culture, modifying selection pressures through learning, innovation, and niche construction. The resulting non-linear stepwise ratcheting enriched environments and genomes alike in continuous dynamic interplay. Likewise, individual consciousnesses and brains continuously co-emerge across lifespan in multiple domains. Encoding recalled regularities internally, brains self-organize to reflect biometrically optimal representations of environments. Meanwhile, mental activities reinforce and transform neural structures through activity-dependent plasticity. Overall, a framework embracing relational emergence provides an appropriate metaphysical foundation for consciousness complexity, arising through adaptive co-evolutionary interdependencies across scales, from micro to macro, and field to individual. Neither causality nor ontological independence fully describe such co-evolutionary processes. Chapter 5. Non-reductive reciprocal dynamism, perhaps the most insightful perspective, provides a theoretical middle ground between strict dualism and reductionism's unilateral explanations. Emergence theory claims novel systemic properties arise non-reductively from interactions among constituents. Non-reductive physicalism asserts experiential and neuronal properties correlate exclusively while remaining ontologically distinct. Reciprocal dynamism represents a coherent metaphysical model, asserting mind and matter, while ontologically separate domains mutually influence each other non-reductively according to relational laws. Past a certain threshold of complexity, systemic consciousness arose yet yielded top-down feedback regulating microscale processes guiding adaptive evolution. Recent work identifies evidence neural dynamics are regulated non-locally from mind-body feedback loops on multiple timescales and levels. Growth of neural complexity finds mirrored in increasing sociocultural niche construction abilities. Reciprocal influences appear built into nature from elementary to most advanced scales. Overall, conceptualizing relations between experience and physicality as lawfully co-evolved ontologically irreducible dynamical processes provides a metaphysically parsimonious yet versatile framework, avoiding dualism and reductionism's defects.
Future empirical exploration promises refinement. Part IV, the phenomenology of experience.
Chapter 1, Qualia as informational patterns. The qualitative or qualitative feel of experience remains most resistant to naturalistic explanation. However, conceptualizing qualia as informational dynamics within conscious systems relates them systematically to neurophysiology without reduction. Informational structures integrating distributed activity constitute qualia conceptualized as integrated dynamical properties of consciousness complexes. Qualia involve relational, configurational properties of information dynamically processed within systems. Their mutual relationship defines their qualitative character. Just as physical configurational properties like mass result from interactions among constituents, so qualia emerge as integrated informational properties of neuronal complexes. Patterns binding activity within conscious capacities represent environmental affordances and internal states. Experiential qualities thus physically supervene upon larger-scale informational configurations within brains involving nonlinear resonances. This allows continuity between brain activity and subjective experience without reductionism. Conceptualizing qualia informationally within boundaries systemically relates first and third-person perspectives on consciousness without separating them, ontologically. Future modeling aims to simulate this multimodal informational subjectivity. Chapter 2. Subjective realities as situationally emergent. Phenomenology regards consciousness as essentially world-directed through perceptions and projects. The perceived world holds meaning or value in relation to embedded agents' lived situation, history, and goals. What appears real for an entity depends on its necessarily limited perspective-modulating sensory inputs. Drawing on these insights, radical enactivism views realities, both inner and outer, as environmentally situated constructions of dynamic organism environment systems. No objective pre-given world exists independently of structural coupling between organism and niche. Instead, over evolutionary and developmental timescales, lived realities recursively co-emerge through bottom-up self-organizing sensor-motor loops. Subjective purviews emerge systematically, yet situationally dependent on embodied histories and embedded contexts. Perspectives dynamically self-regulate through continuous reciprocal interactions modulating sensory and motor surfaces between system and surroundings. By embedding consciousness ecologically within circular organism niche interactions, a more comprehensive framework relates first and third person through an active closure across scales. Future work will clarify this paradigm's forms of emergent realism. Chapter 3. Structural degeneracy versus ontological dualism. While conceptualized as informational, consciousness resists exhaustive physical descriptions, motivating expanded metaphysical perspectives. Panpsychism claims experience accompanies all microphysical and dynamical activity as an intrinsic non-physical property. Neutral monism asserts experiential and physical qualities jointly emerge from a more fundamental neutral stuff without ontological separation. Recent work models consciousness structurally using category theory rather than reductively explicating experience. This approach views mind as natural transformations between formal categories representing qualia and brain states respectively without attributing them to distinct substances. Structural degeneracy replaces substance dualism by allowing multiple distinct categorical descriptions of a system. Experience intrinsically depends on physical organism, yet denotes distinct set of structural relationships. Similarly, mathematical structures like group or topological spaces relate categorical objects without attributing them separate material existence. This reconciles experiential and dynamical perspectives within a pluralistic yet non-reductive ontology. Experience arises through organizational patterns, without requiring ontological independence from underlying dynamics. Future work could clarify how neutral substances, proto-experiences, or categorical structures genuinely arise from dynamics without reductivism or ontological separation. Non-dual perspectives requiring neither materialism nor dualism remain most compelling. Chapter 4. Perspectival pluralism within shared contexts. Subjective experience as situated and emergent naturally appears pluralistic both within and be experiential domains. Phenomenology describes how a thing can appear differently to different parties due to divergent standpoints, interests, capacities, and embedded histories. Each consciousness contains a unique point of view amid publicly shared contexts and lived worlds. Famously argued, subjective experience of mentation differs between humans and bats. More broadly, all agents inhabit unique, nested intersectional identities within intersectional environments. Each perspective contributes valid yet partial accounts depending on irreducible position relative to world. Category theory validates and subsumes pluralism by modeling multiple compatible perspectives. While experienced realities diverge, ecosystems remain partially shareable contexts, constraining yet enabling emergence of situated viewpoints. Universally, consciousness arises through open relational exchanges within common, yet variably experienced collective milieux. Future work integrating phenomenology, Feminist and indigenous epistemologies with theoretical advancements could strengthen appreciation for worldly plurality. A systematic framework embracing valid multiplicity may provide wisdom discouraging reductivism, while nurturing compassion recognizing our shared yet uniquely configured journeys. Chapter 5. Modeling first-person perspectives categorically. Category theory's abstract formalism prove well-suited for reconciling first- and third-person descriptions of experience within a coherent mathematical framework. Category theory's internal languages relate external characterization to intrinsic perspective without reduction. Formally modeling first-person accounts rigorously yet flexibly holds promise. Monoidal categories represent compositions and formal properties intrinsic to qualitative perspectives. Objects equate to qualia conceptually designated from within. Morphisms denote transformations between qualities formally characterizing qualitative relations without observationally reducing them. Meanwhile, adjunctions associate qualia categories to domains like neurodynamics externally characterizing experience. Sheaves, stacks, and toposes model experiences context sensitivity and dependence on perspectives systematically without separating realms. Sheaf cohomology applies to conceptual problems regarding experiences situated emergence within structural couplings between observer and environment over time. Topos theory's internal logic unifies language describing experience from without and within as mutually informable descriptions. Natural transformations between sheaves relate viewpoints through open yet shareable structural connections. Further categorical approaches may help model phenomena like empathy bridging first- and third-person pluralistically. Overall, category theory provides formal tools conceptualizing experiential plurality and emergence within common mathematical frameworks promoting conceptual coherence across scales. Part V. Inner coherence and outer alignment. Chapter 1. Neuroplastic optimization and entrainment. Reciprocal relationships between mind and brain involve continuous adaptive processes. Plastic neuronal circuits self-organize through unsupervised Hebbian learning to represent regular aspects of internally generated and externally perceived experiences. Reinforced cell assemblies encode optimal coarse-grain models, balancing accuracy with energy efficiency. Self-organized criticality drives neural activity toward a dynamically poised state where long-range correlations arise without external tuning. This enhances information capacity, integrating function across levels while avoiding rigidity. Intrinsic criticality implies brain activity optimizes autonomously through scale-free dynamics to represent useful regularities. Meanwhile, mental activity entrains neural synchronization through top-down predictive feedback. Endogenous cortical oscillations guide selective attention by modulating sensory areas.
Emotional states induce functional amygdala-cortical coupling. Overall, reciprocal interplay
between neural self-organized criticality and mental entrainment continuously updates representations to achieve internal coherence and external alignment. Chapter 2. Attractors, repellers, and intentionality. Dynamical systems theory provides a framework for modeling the emergence of purpose, value, and directedness from spontaneous nonlinear brain activity. Stable patterns of correlated firing within cell assemblies form attractor networks representing concepts, stimuli, or goals. Recurrent connectivity enables reactivation of memories or predictions indistinguishable from perceptions. Certain mental states correspond to deep attractor basins, exhibiting inertia against perturbation and integrating widespread activity. Conscious experience tracks routes through abstract landscapes defined by interacting attractors across scales. Reciprocally, fields of mental affordances and meanings guide experience through favored trajectories. Unstable fixed points or repellers represent aversions, representing boundaries of comfort zones. Navigation between attractors and repellers through mental activity frames and interior teleology modeling intrinsic directedness and evaluative charge. Self-organizing to occupy attractor basins of optimal prediction accuracy links intentionality naturally to living adaptive systems. Chapter 3. Emotional Valence as an Experiential Rheostat. Core affect represents the neural dimension along which intrinsically positive and negative feelings continuously vary. Valence core affective states penetrate experience, impacting cognition and behavior adaptively by flagging opportunities and threats. Subjective well-being maps smoothly across a hedonic continuum defined liminally by a homeostatic set point regulated by dopaminergic and opioidergic neurotransmitter systems. Emotional tone scopes the lens of experience by differentially amplifying or attenuating activity in attention and memory networks according to fitness relevance. Valenced appraisal signals bias cortical representations by adaptively modulating plasticity genes expression, impacting long-term schemas, habits, and autobiographical narratives. Core affects self-organizes within critical bifurcations toward ranges optimizing allostasis, remaining poised adaptively between ground state and excitability. Overall, intrinsic affect represents a rheostat naturally sculpting the contours of inner worlds through adaptive enhancements amplifying fitness salient details. Moment to moment, variability and emotional tone systematically tunes experience to continually align representations internally and with environments. Chapter 4. Memory Visualization and Possibility Actualization. Dynamical models have begun relating imagination, future thinking, and hypothesis testing to patterns of neural activity supporting memory recall and simulation. Sparse cell assemblies combining abstract semantic representations with contextual details enable flexible recombination to envision hypothetical scenarios. Pattern completion mechanisms in the hippocampus tune attractor networks to complete fragmentary cues into full recalled episodes. Reverse replay during rest and dreaming may test and strengthen selected memories by reactivating place cells out of temporal order to anticipate new transitions. Offline spontaneous replay suggests experience viscerally rehearses past and possible futures. Creativity and problem-solving emerges through synergistic interactions between divergent and convergent thought via recombination and selection of cell assembly patterns. Parameters modulating metacontrol networks regulate transitions between exploration of conceptual spaces and refinement of optimal solutions. Goal-directed mental activity minds casts of potential realities by sculpting neural attractor dynamics toward adaptive alignments with environment. Chapter 5. Cognitive Updating Toward Dynamic Equilibrium. Interconnected learning and self-regulation processes uphold internal representation fidelity despite constantly changing contexts. Predictive coding minimizes discrepancies between top-down predictions and ascending prediction errors. This equilibrium-seeking process incrementally updates hierarchical generative models, encoding regularities across modalities and timescales. Self-supervised learning utilizing temporal statistics organizes intrinsic dynamics to optimally infer hidden drivers behind streams of observations. By grounding generative models in experience, perception is constrained while enabling inference of unperceived aspects and potential. Meanwhile, selective gating balances plasticity, allowing updates versus stability promoting previously learned consistencies. Persistent non-equilibrium critical dynamics continually tune delicate balances between pattern completion, segregation, and predictive model complexity. Experience optimizes representation quality by maintaining poised dynamics between stability and sensitivity. Overall reciprocal interplay between inference, learning, and stabilization achieves coherent self-regulated updating of mental models. Part VI. The Flow of Time. Chapter 1. Temporal Experience as Informational Flow. There is consensus that subjective temporal experience arises from ongoing information processing in the brain, but its precise underlying mechanisms remain unclear. Evidence suggests neural coding of temporal flow involves the accumulation and integration of information across distributed cortical regions over time. Information theory provides a framework to conceptualize this. According to integrated information theory, temporal consciousness emerges from a complex, highly intrinsic cause-effect repertoire within the phi maximal set of minimum information partitions of the brain's activity patterns. This is supported by fMRI studies showing increased neural complexity and integrated information in conscious percepts. Neurophysiological evidence also links temporal experience to the brain's oscillatory dynamics. Studies show temporal judgments correlate with neural temporal integration timescales set by cortical oscillation frequencies in the theta to gamma range. This suggests temporal processing arises from time binding of distributed representations through synchrony. Thus, information flow integrated across neural ensembles underlies our inner sense of temporality. Chapter 2. General Relativity and Subjective Relativity. Einstein's theory of general relativity revolutionized our understanding of time as inextricably linked to gravitation and the geometry of space-time itself. Phenomenological considerations link temporal experience to the observer's perspective in similar fashion. As Merleau-Ponty noted, time only breathes life subjectively through the situated temporal flow of perceptions and actions. Neuroscience evidence increasingly supports this relativization of time to the contextually embedded observer. Temporal illusions demonstrate our sense of time depends on cue connotation and meaning, not objective meter. Time perception aligns with cognitive processes like attention, emotion, and memory. fMRI studies find stimuli timing judgments correlated with activity in networks integrating context cues. This links subjective and cosmological relativity. In general relativity, clock's rate depends on motion through space-time's metric. Similarly, temporal experience aligns to an agent's changing needs, goals, and situations. As in relativity, temporal flow emerges as an intrinsic property of the conscious system conditioning and conditioned by its dynamically changing relational context. Chapter 3. Entropy, Irreversibility, and the Arrow of Time. Thermodynamics introduced the notion of entropy, a measure of unavailable thermal energy corresponding to time's asymmetry. The hypothesis that the universe's overall entropy increases accounts for time's arrow, but does not explain psychological time. While neural activity converts chemical energy into heat, cognition invokes information processing opposing thermodynamic decline. Evidence suggests consciousness aligns with other more generalized arrows incorporating information dynamics. The past hypothesis postulates initial conditions of the universe set its entropy lower in the past, resulting in diverging forward trajectories of greater complexity. Intrinsic brain dynamics also exhibit propagating patterns of information transfer coinciding with temporal flow. Future work could model thermodynamic and informational arrows unifying at the quantum level, as suggested by holographic cosmology. Quantum processes are time asymmetric despite underlying time-symmetric dynamics due to the unidirectional change in probabilities favored by initial conditions. Consciousness may thus align time with information-theoretic aspects of the cosmic arrow. Chapter 4. Decoherent histories and path integrals. Insights from fundamental physics shed new light on temporality. In the decoherent, or consistent, histories approach to quantum theory, events appear ordered along a single timeline due to environmental decoherence inducing fine-grained interference between configurations. Originating in Feynman's path integral formulation, the consistent histories framework models temporal evolution as a coherent superposition of all possible system trajectories, weighted by their probability amplitudes. Decoherence selects via environmental interaction a single path observable at the macroscale, resolving the superposition. Analogously, memory formation involves coherent superimposition and decoherent selection among neural representational states. Offline replay samples trajectory variations probabilistically. Associative networks equipped with internal decoherence may temporally order model components systematically. Similarly, the flow of conscious experience progresses coherently through a multiplicity of dynamical potentialities. Chapter 5. Evolving time within evolving space. Modern cosmology depicts space-time as a dynamical texture undergoing variation linked to gravitating matter rather than a fixed backdrop. Even Einstein conceived time as an emergent cosmological attribute, depending on energy and momentum flows through interactive fields. If space-time metric evolves, so too might intrinsic temporal characteristics. As the universe expands, cosmic time dilates at increasing rates. Biological clocks evidence readjustment with cosmic epochs. Spatial geometries transforming internally would induce correlated variations in characteristic timescales. By regarding consciousness as enmeshed within a participatory spacetime, its time flow may inherently co-evolve. Brain lateralization displays plasticity over generations. Cultural timeframes accelerate with technological change. Time appears relative and context-dependent because enmeshed in continually reshaping spatial configurations. Overall, an intrinsically co-evolving viewpoint reconciles temporality with cosmology by regarding them as mutually emergent relational aspects. Part V. Agency and Causality. Chapter 1. Free Will in a Participatory Universe. Rigorous philosophical perspectives and modern science alike undermine simple notions of absolute determinism or libertarian free will. Quantum events remain intrinsically unpredictable, yet constrained statistically, motivating compatibilist stances. M-theory and the holographic principle depict reality mathematically as informationally encoded on horizons in a participatory fashion. Free will emerges from complex interactive interfaces between levels, with choices open yet bounded by systemic constraints. Neuroscience evidence suggests conscious volition arises through recursive interactions among hierarchical control structures influenced jointly by endogenous plans and exogenous cues. Transcranial stimulation shows intention initiates before conscious awareness, supporting compatibilist views. Overall perspectives reconciling indeterminism, system constraints, and compatibilism are compelling. Chapter 2. Multiversal interfaces and relative influence. Many worlds and multiverse theories motivate re-examining causality if parallel branches interact probabilistically. Relative state formalism depicts the universal wave function evolving unitarily yet splits observers into correlated branches, each experiencing different sequences. Holographic cosmology suggests influence propagates non-locally between interface bits encoding information on horizons throughout nested scales. Dimensional reduction mathematics maps dynamics between levels and correspondence, implying top-down and bottom-up influences. Evidence suggests non-locality and retrocausality at quantum scales. At the brain scale, mental activity exerts top-down control over neural synchronization from milliseconds to decades. Ultimately, causality involves probabilistic constraint and guidance between holistically nested relation levels. Chapter 3. Probability wave function and potentiality. The quantum wave function endows nature with a wave-like ontology of potentia, containing all dynamical possibilities within its probabilistic structure. Wave function collapse from multiple pathways to actual events retains intact the entire past domain of virtual states. Combined with decoherence and the many worlds interpretation, this resolves measurement inconsistency while retaining wave-like potentiality ontologically. Internal decoherence within conscious systems may guide collapse to dominant preferred trajectories from among quantum superpositions. At the mesoscopic brain scale, neural cell assemblies exhibit wave-like behaviors with coherent electroencephalogram oscillations representing metastable virtual patterns. Their probabilistic transformation or collapse through sensory input realizes conscious experience from unconscious potentialities. Overall, a quantum-informed framework modeling existence as inherently potential yet guided individuation remains compelling. Chapter 4. Observation, Measurement, and Actualization. For causality, the crux lies in understanding measurement within the quantum realm. Broadly defined as any physical process correlated with and recording a system state, measurement mediates between potentiality and actuality. For consciousness, the relationship between phenomenal experience and neural dynamical changes during perception merit study. Weak quantum measurements perturbing systems, without fully decohering them, could metaphorically model how sensory input reinforces selected neural patterns without entirely resolving metastable virtual cellular states. Recursive and predictive processing integrating feedback from higher areas with ascending inputs might guide this selection preferentially without ontological separation of observer and observed. Brain imaging evidence links conscious perception to widely integrated response patterns engaging higher areas, supporting non-reductionist middle-way relations between experience and neural dynamics. Overall, an inactive predictive processing framework embracing quantum potentiality appears insightful while awaiting clarification. Chapter 5. Holographic cascades across recursive scales. Modeling causality and agency harmoniously across scales motivate generalizing quantum principles holographically. Building on mathematics unifying micro and macro levels, algorithms encode lower-dimensional dynamics interpolated computationally on horizons. This formalizes how fine-scale quantum information constrained by boundary conditions mathematically induces dynamics on macro interfaces critical to volumes. Types of information flow recursively upward or downward across glued manifolds. As general relativity links perspectives, formal holographic entailments may correlate views systematically across levels. Complex living and conscious systems integrate functionality through self-organizing criticality, poised sensitivity to myriad inputs. Downward and lateral biosignaling cascades coordinate elements into functional unity. Upward self-modeling establishes predictive embedded agenthood. Together, these embody recurrent processes of influence across organizational scales and nature. Future work may clarify mechanisms yielding autonomy within lawful interdependence. Part VIOS. The Participatory Cosmos. Chapter 1. Quantum Darwinism and Conscious Obiters. The emergence of classicality from quantum substratum presents one of physics' deepest mysteries. Quantum Darwinism proposes that systems interact selectively with their local environments, inducing einselection and amplification of information about preferred states accessible to multiple observers. As observing systems record information redundantly from their surroundings, they precipitate the objective existence of those states without disturbing them. This becomes the classical realm, while others smoothly decohere into inaccessible alternatives behind environmental redundancies. Conscious entities similarly guide perceptions through interactive emergence with their embedded ecologies. Brain research confirms conscious perception arises through global synaptic integration, influenced strongly by concurrent contexts integrating multimodal experiences into unified representations. Neurophenomenological studies report conscious content clearly related to distributed networks involving widespread sensory, memory, and evaluative systems. Collectively, this supports consciousness as both guided by and guiding of its wider relational domain through recursive feedback. Chapter 2. Anthropic Multiverse Theory and Self-Selection. Recent work applies Bayesian reasoning and self-locating uncertainty to the multiverse, suggesting our existence results from dynamical self-selection rather than initial conditions alone. Anthropic theory models observers as embedded functionally specialized subsystems implying our presence encodes environmental information. While algorithmic information theory indicates simple early life emergence remained probable, complex intelligent observers require improbable evolutionary pathways. Fine-tuned environments and physical parameters enhance chances of rich observational experiences and technological intelligence, gaining thermodynamic leverage to sculpt future conditions recursively. These reciprocal relationships between observers, observed, and an enabling nested contextual scales provide a fruitful approach. Chapter 3. Possible pasts, probable futures. The psychological present inherits the past, yet is informed by conceivable futures. Evidence suggests memory constructs coherent narratives integrating imagined trajectories with actual experience. Adaptive recall reinforces survival-relevant lessons by favoring consistent causal themes over veridical precision. Similarly, Bayesian models represent perception as hypothesis testing against generative schemata. Imagination flexibly recombines representations to envision consequences of actions, potentially reducing uncertainty. Goal-directed prospection enables planning, strategy, and self-regulation. Overall, memory and imagination appear reciprocal, continuously informing one another to guide adaptive navigation through lattices of possible pasts and probable branching futures. Both shape experience through reconstructive processes, dynamically updating internal models. Chapter 4. It from bit reality from information. The paradigm shift toward information theoretic and computational perspectives on the cosmos provides a fruitful framework. If the holographic principle proves generalized, the physical world constitutes a vast information processing system mathematically projected from an interface. Wheeler's it from bit doctrine posits all phenomena fundamentally derive from observer participation in interconnected webs of relevant and irrelevant facts. The universe self-synthesizes experientially from physical laws enacting correlations between certain dynamically focused degrees of freedom. Structured information ontologically precedes matter, with patterns linked systematically through cosmic evolution. This resonates with panpsychist, bundle and process theories viewing experience as intrinsically relational and arising from physical dynamics inevitably. The world consists not fundamentally of objects, but patterns of informational interdependencies enacted amid primordial sentience through cosmological time. Future progress may integrate these perspectives mathematically. Chapter 5. Holographic quantum gravity and universal oneness. Leading-edge theories seek unification, modeling spacetime and matter as sophisticated information processing on cosmological horizons. Loop quantum gravity depicts discretized quantum spacetime as Planck-scale bits woven into nested conceptual networks. ADS, CFT duality entails explicit mathematical correspondence between gravitational dynamics in a bulk volume and conformal field theories on its bounding sphere. Tomographic reconstruction algorithms interpolate lower-dimensional dynamics on horizons. This resonates with panpsychism's suggestion that ultimate reality fundamentally involves an intricately entangled dataset pregnant with experience. Integrating these insights yields a model of reality as one qualitatively differentiated, yet ultimately indivisible informational plenum, subtly enacting all phenomena through the interweaving of countless experiential proto-perspectives. Future work may specify mechanisms whereby multifaceted oneness yields autonomous universes from within itself relationally. The participatory holographic paradigm offers a promising direction. Part IX, Conscious Cultivation and Neural Optimization. Chapter 1, Meditation, Mindfulness, and Mental Patterning. Decades of research investigate meditation's effects on cognition, emotion regulation, and brain plasticity. Studies link long-term meditative practices to enhanced meta-awareness, attention, compassion, and reduced stress reactivity. fMRI findings observe altered activation and connectivity in prefrontal regions, sensory cortices, and limbic structures implicated in interoception and emotional processing. Meditation may induce neuroplastic changes in areas supporting attentional control, self-related processing, and emotional regulation. Longitudinal studies associate meditation with increased gray matter concentration in brain regions subserving learning, memory processes, and emotional regulation. Such experience-dependent neuroplastic changes optimize neural circuits underlying focused attention, meta-awareness, and stress resilience. Overall, meditation represents an evidence-based approach for consciously cultivating neural circuits. Chapter 2. Cognitive Frameworks, Emotional Responses, Growing evidence indicates thought patterns extensively modify emotional responses by shaping cognitive appraisals and physiological reactions. Experiments demonstrate framing events more positively or negatively systematically biases affective evaluations and arousal levels. Functional imaging studies associate pessimistic attributional styles with heightened amygdala reactivity and weakened prefrontal inhibition implicated in emotional regulation. Conversely, optimism correlates with prefrontal activations linked to reappraisal and reduced subcortical responses. Cognitive behavioral therapies harness these malleable influences, training attentional deployment, restructuring unhelpful automatic thoughts, and testing beliefs' validity to substantially reduce anxiety, depression, and somatic illnesses. New conceptual frameworks aids replacing maladaptive patterns with more adaptive ones to optimize subjective well-being and resilience. Chapter 3: Memory, Learning, and Neuroplasticity. Neuroscientific evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates experience-dependent neuroplasticity, reshaping neural circuitry throughout life. Hebbian mechanisms reinforce coactive cell assemblies, strengthening representational maps supporting memories, skills, and associations. Consolidation and reconsolidation processes transfer transient engrams to synthesize dispersed representations across integrated regions. Interference and competitive interactions interactively update stored contents, allowing adaptive generalization beyond discrete episodes. Activity-dependent epigenetic and transcriptional modifications sustaining neural growth underlie long-term potentiation, enabling conceptual abstractions on new experiences. Overall, lifelong neuroplasticity endows minds with remarkable adaptability as environments, body minds, and relationships dynamically evolve. Chapter 4: Guiding Neurogenesis Through Visualization. Studies increasingly suggest the aptly named brain-mind shapes itself according to cultivated mental representations. Neurogenesis persists throughout adulthood in memory-forming regions like hippocampus, with neurogenic precursor populations responsive to experience and dopamine neurotransmission. Research finds enriched environments, complex learning tasks, and aerobic exercise stimulate hippocampal neurogenesis correlated with improved memory and mood regulation. Multisensory mental imagery activates circuits mirroring physical experiences, helping consolidate representations while sharpening perception, cognition, and skills. Preliminary evidence links guided visualization to subjective well-being, immune function, athletic performance, coping, and reduced flashbacks pain. Future studies may clarify neuroplastic mechanisms driving regeneration via mental activities and resolve ethical constraints. Chapter 5: Behavior, Environment, and Social Entrainment. Self-organization theory models brains, bodies, and social networks as unified learning systems, precipitating optimum functionality through niche construction. Cognitive, behavioral, and environmental factors reciprocally fine-tune one another through development and lifetime. Social rhythms entrain biological clocks, maintaining coordination between individuals and groups necessary for predictive adaptive alignment. Learned helplessness paradigms demonstrate environmentally induced depressive behaviors and neurophysiology transferred between generations. Social relationships shape neurobiological systems, regulating immunity, cardiovascular health, sensitivity to stress, and structural development through early life attachment experiences. Likewise, opportunities or constraints within niches reciprocally influence generative potentials, manifesting cognitive and social abilities. Overall, an optimal developmental framework embraces holism, neuroplasticity, and ecological social construction. Part X: Cultural Co-Creation and Progress. Chapter 1: Social Resonance and the Global Mind. Cognition arises non-linearly through dynamical interactions within complex adaptive systems. Cultural niche construction exponentially expands functional capabilities through social learning and cumulative templates passed between generations. Neuroimaging studies find cultural worldviews shape internal representations through experience-dependent plasticity. Distributed networks comprise a global brain as ideas propagate via resonance between receptive minds. Newly emerging phenomena involve emergence at the scale of societies as globalization weakens compartmentalization. Self-organized criticality within metapopulations could drive cultural phase transitions mimicking neural activity. Overall, perspectives embracing cultural evolution as an integral product of social neuroplasticity provide a fruitful framework. Chapter 2: Memetics, Information Spread, and Cumulative Culture. Conceptual analysis clarifies how cultural innovations arise through competitive spread and hybridization governed by attention, memory, and transmission biases between minds. Memetics views cultural units as self-replicating according to template-based contagion heuristics analogous to genetics. Experimental studies confirm cultural transmission dynamically reshapes schemata through selective social learning from prestigious individuals. Cumulative cultural evolution occurs as populations combine variant ideas into progressively more elaborate repertoires across generations despite limited individual lifespans. Big data analytics track meme trajectories through social networks according to differential popularity, personal attributes, and network position. Conceptual frameworks oriented around evolutionary dynamics illuminate sociocultural phenomena that remain otherwise opaque due to complexity. Chapter 3: Niche Construction and Mutual Scaffolding. Reciprocally, cultural ideas mold the environments agentically impacting biological and institutional evolution. Niche construction theory models how problem-solving populations modify selection pressures through environmental modifications and sociocultural innovations. Cultural beliefs shape practices constructing niches reciprocally co-evolving brains, genes, and institutions in feedback. Murray Bowler's modified action capabilities illustrate such niche brain co-development. Larger brains requiring greater resources emerge through cultural practices extending child development-sensitive periods. Complementary to this, scaffolding depicts how cultural artifacts externalize cognition, iteratively transforming mutual relations between internal biological and external stored intellectual structures. Overall, holistic perspectives recognize gene-culture interdependence cannot be disentangled. Chapter 4: Paradigm Shifts and Scientific Revolutions. Emergence often occurs abruptly through punctuated revolutions as thresholds are crossed. Case studies illuminate social dynamics enabling conceptual breakthroughs. Thomas Kuhn describes scientific progress accumulating anomalies resolvable only through anomalous paradigms, instigating revolutions in thinking. Einstein attributed his relativity insights partly to intellectual exposure to disparate theoretical frameworks. Interdisciplinary integration instigated quantum mechanics through collaborative workshops across specializations. Social network analyses trace paradigm shifts propagating gradually via networks of receptive researchers. MIT's Radar Labs exemplified how institutional structures foster cross-pollination. Overall perspectives acknowledging scientific change arises dialogically through multi-level feedback processes clarify dynamics of conceptual change. Chapter 5: Expanding Ethical Circles and Human Potential. A generalized framework points toward expanding concern for others' well-being. Evolution cultivating reciprocal altruism suggests ethics naturalistically involves regard maximizing inclusive fitness in wide cooperative networks. Neuroimaging associates perspective taking with holistic network activations unlike self-interest invoking separateness. Morality likely coupled with group-oriented behavior through gene-culture interactions. Cooperation's fitness benefits to cheaters and cooperators alike imply ethics serve self-interest on collective levels. If minds organically widen identification from self to relations, societies, biosphere, etc., duties encompass life universally. Nonviolence, justice, honesty, and compassion enlarge flourishing for all. Integrated pluralism embracing complexity may catalyze humanity realizing dignity and agency for all Earth's inhabitants. Part She: Navigating Uncertainty and Mystery. Chapter 1: the limits of modeling and measurement. Any comprehensive framework must acknowledge inherent limitations. Rigorous science progresses through falsifiable hypotheses, yet ultimate reality's nature remains inexhaustibly rich. Despite insights, conceptual maps cannot replace uncharted territory itself. Heisenberg showed measurement irrevocably perturbing quantum superpositions, undermining objective observations. Chaos theory delineated sensitivity dependence, making long-term prediction unfeasible. Complex systems theory proved emergent properties intrinsically unpredictable from constituents. Category theory's plural morphisms admit multi-structured perspectives on one system. Anthropic biases unavoidably shape scientific assumptions as embedded within planetary niche. Overall humility recognizes maps and territories mutually condition, yet never fully capture each other due to mysteriousness inherent in nature. Chapter 2. Unknown unknowns and future surprises. Uncertainty ensures the unforeseeable will continue shaping destiny. Even sophisticated modeling remains bounded by finite knowledge and computational limits, leaving uncharted combinatorial possibility spaces unbounded. Algorithms' performance depends on training environments and cannot extrapolate creatively to novelty beyond statistical patterns underpinning. Self-modifying intelligence amplifies this. Chaotic interrelationships render sensitive dependence on initial unknown conditions inevitable. Breakthroughs from outside established frameworks revolutionize disciplines, as Einsteinian relativity and quantum mechanics showed. Emergence of transformative technologies, catastrophic events, or exogenous contact with other intelligences remains intrinsically unforeseeable. While insight proliferates, gradually lessening uncertainty, mystery's infinity ensures surprise remains nature's unceasing gift. Chapter 3. Embracing absolute mystery, avoiding hubris. Any adequate perspective must balance comprehension with reverence for unfathomability. Physics confronts ultimate limits in quantum gravity and cosmos's accelerating expansion, driving science toward horizon. Conscious experience presents mysteries surpassing current descriptive capabilities. Category theory's plural perspectives fittingly yield no single objective encapsulation. Process philosophies suggest an unfathomably complex creative advance integral to cosmos itself that subjective experience awes before advancing. Rigorous modeling and parsimonious explanations prevail empirically without denigrating wondrous mystery ever exceeding human reach. Future pathways remain indeterminate despite progress, underscoring humility before profound mysteries ultimately realizing unitary wholeness, despite their mutual separation for participatory awareness within. Chapter 4. Occam's razor, parsimony and simplicity. Despite irreducible mysteries, rigorous frameworks embrace parsimony and testability obligated by empirical attitudes. Occam's razor deems plurality impermissible without necessity, pruning extraneous constructs. Physics exemplifies progressing toward elegant unified theories describing multitudes with increasing economy of means. Category theory cultivates abstract unity through common mathematical currency between domains. Meanwhile, complexity emerges from coupled simplicity without redundancy. Parsimonious integration outperforms fragmentary specificity evolutionarily by efficiently inferring regularity from scant data. While experience remains categorically distinct from neurodynamics, parsimonious accounts remain preferable, relating them systematically without idle separation. Complementarity demands unified yet underdetermined perspective economy comprehending natural diversity. Chapter 5. Complementarity, paradox, and tensional integrity. Contradictory ideas provoke inventiveness by cultivating creative friction. Paradoxes indicate limits transcended dialectically rather than resolved. Complementarity principles embrace mutually irreducible perspectives through open dialogue, inspiring further thought. Divergent models stimulate new tools, synthesizing insights, as wave-particle duality united classical optics with quantum phenomena. Cultures thrived embracing paradoxical worldviews. Contradictions compel abandoning limitations for more capacious frameworks. Dialectical reasoning progresses through intelligible pairing of opposing concepts. Overall, tensions creatively energize inquiry by destabilizing compulsory narratives. And integrity arises amid complementarities beyond supersession, requiring neither reconciliation nor separation. The participatory cosmology's trans-conceptual character, inconceivably uniting all within mystery itself, reflects this spirit of creative containing contradictions fruitfully through dynamic equilibrium. Part A. Conclusion. Chapter 1. Summary of key contributions. This work aimed to integrate insights across disciplines regarding consciousness and its place in the natural order. Part I explored panpsychism and the hard problem, proposing category theory as a tool bridging mind-matter divisions. Parts 2V developed dynamical informational modeling of experience as recursively emergent within bounded yet open relational systems. Parts V explored temporality, agency, and causality through quantum-informed lenses, embracing potentiality and observer participation. Parts IX applied these to cultural dynamics and cognitive cultivation, conceptualizing mental phenomena as adaptive complex systems. Parts G emphasized humility before nature's unmasterable mysteries within necessarily limited frameworks. Overall, a participatory cosmology emerged non-reductively uniting observer and observed through intricate recursive interdependencies across scales. From micro to macrotemporal, experience naturally arose within such nested relational frameworks through dynamical emergence without ontological separation. Complementarity prevailed over contradictions through holistic plurality. Chapter 2. Avenues for future research. Many possibilities remain for progressing understanding while respecting uncertainty. Refining dynamical and category-theoretic models could clarify experience's lawful emergence. Neuroscience integrating multiple levels may illuminate feedback loops. Cultural dynamics merits systemic study relating biological and institutional evolution. Clarifying holographic, quantum, and information-theoretic principles' universal implications deserves mathematical and empirical work. Non-locality and micro-macro relations require elucidation. Consciousness' role in fundamental quantum processes remains conjectural yet intriguing. Generalizing insights to artificial and alien intelligences may yield fruit. Continued cross-pollination between sciences, humanities, indigenous knowledges promises revolutionizing insights. Pursuing paradoxes may illuminate murky domains conceptually. Modeling irreducible subjectivity numerically presents challenges but opportunities. Studying worldviews' cognitive and collective impacts merits attention. Overall, nature's abundant mysteries ensure inquiry's endless rewards. Chapter 3. Parting thoughts on compassion and coherence. This project aimed not to impose conclusions, but foster contemplation, cultivating wonder before existence's mysteries. If realities fundamentally interweave through relationships across scales, nonviolence arises naturally from empathizing with others as internally connected, however distantly, to ourselves. Reciprocal adaptedness suggests optimizing mutual flourishing through voluntary cooperation honoring differences. Convergent inquiry across disciplines inspires regard for diverse perspectives, constituting a shared, open-ended search for understanding within irreducible uncertainty. Conceptual frameworks clarify thinking when judiciously applied yet yield before experiences eluding capture. Reality's participatory character, echoing Whitehead, implies a balance between independence and interdependence cultivated through compassion. Efforts synthesizing distributed knowledge toward integrated, testable, and pragmatically insightful models of reality's deep coherence merit continued support. Overall, may insight nourish humility, curiosity, and care for life, unfolding beautifully yet mysteriously within the diffuse confines of our humble perceptions. Chapter 4. The more we know we don't know. This work surveyed a fraction of nature's infinitude, finding answers open further questions. While explanatory frameworks clarify, describing cosmic process advancing inexorably yet gently remains Sisyphean. Deeper mysteries will always outpace human strategies for containing them conceptually. Progress expands yet reinforces porosity between maps and terrain. Comprehension's limits puncture arrogance while fueling perseverance. Despite achievements, existence's fundamental character evades final domestication within interpretations. Reality retains irreducible novum eternally surprising participating subjects within its unfolding. Projection of order comprehends amidst a plenum inconceivably grounding all within its fecund dynamism. Despite rigors, humility alone befits this quixotic yet blissful voyage inhabiting fleeting appearances within an indivisible whole transcending categories. Chapter 5. Our shared journey of endless discovery. This work aimed contributing to humanity's collective evolutionary dialogue, promoting open-minded consideration of life's profound yet approachable mysteries. Perspectives integrating rigor with compassion deserve consideration across divides. While questions proliferate endlessly, answers emerge cooperatively through creative tensions between dispersed explorations. Uncertainty nourishes curiosity, sustaining curiosity's rewards. Solidarity arises from empathizing with others, navigating shared puzzles from unique angles within our intricately interwoven, yet profoundly ungraspable cosmos. Differences inspire as varieties of one fascinated inquisition. Together may shared gifts illuminate existences interfacing enrichingly across permeable borders within life's indivisible drama. Progress dances on ignorance's endless horizon, fueled by tendering what we know with care and insight and molding thought's tools judiciously to nurture wisdom. May insight kindle humility and care for life, unfolding all around in bewildering yet awesome splendor. Our journey together amid lucent unknowns remains life's most profound belonging. Let existence's wonders fire our spirits to uncover beauty wherever truth may lead within reality's unimaginably rich yet coherent tapestry.